They toasted my replacement before my father-in-law's body reached room temperature. 3 days later, my wife fired me in the kitchen I'd built with my own hands. My son, the sous chef, didn't say a word. She poured champagne in my office, using glasses I'd imported from Murano. She had no idea what was coming on Monday. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm 46 years old, and I've spent the last 19 years turning a failing neighborhood bistro into a culinary empire. Not just a restaurant, a destination. My father-in-law, Jean-Pierre Rousseau, opened Maison Rousseau in 1987 in the Marina District of San Francisco. Classic French cuisine, white tablecloths, the kind of place where regulars came for coq au vin and left feeling like they'd been to Paris. When I married his daughter, Catherine, in 2005, I was a line cook at Chez Panisse with a Culinary Institute degree and enough arrogance to think I could revolutionize French cooking. Jean-Pierre saw something in me, said I had the palate of an artist and the discipline of a surgeon. He wasn't sentimental about food, but he believed in craftsmanship, and I was a craftsman. By 2009, when the restaurant was hemorrhaging money during the recession, I didn't just suggest menu changes. I rebuilt everything, renegotiated every supplier contract personally, redesigned the kitchen workflow, cut food costs by 34% while improving quality, developed relationships with local farms that gave us exclusive access to ingredients nobody else could get. Jean-Pierre called it sorcery. I called it sourcing. We survived when 7 restaurants on our block went dark. Catherine took credit for maintaining the family legacy. She'd been running front of house, which mostly meant greeting regulars by name and posting beautiful photos on Instagram. We have 2 kids. Dylan's 23, works as sous chef at Maison Rousseau. Jean-Pierre's idea, not mine. Sophie's 20, studying hospitality management at Cornell. Both good kids, though Dylan's got his mother's ability to read people and tell them what they want to hear. Sophie's got my perfectionism. Didn't realize how much that would matter until last week. Jean-Pierre's funeral was on a Tuesday, staged like a wine pairing, every detail considered. Catherine wore a black Dior dress with Jean-Pierre's Legion of Honor pin, an expression of elegant grief she'd probably practiced with a timer. The service was at Grace Cathedral, the impressive one with the stained glass and the labyrinth. 300 people showed up, restaurant owners, food critics, vintners Jean-Pierre had worked with for 40 years, the mayor who'd given him a key to the city in 2015. I counted 19 people who congratulated Catherine before Jean-Pierre's casket left the cathedral. 19. The new era begins, one Michelin inspector whispered, kissing both her cheeks like she'd just won a star. She smiled that practiced smile, the one she used on open-table testimonials. Gracious but not desperate, confident but approachable, camera ready. My name wasn't mentioned in the eulogy. My chair wasn't in the family section. That was reserved for Catherine, Dylan, and Jean-Pierre's sister, who flew in from Lyon. I sat 4 rows back next to Sophie, who kept gripping my hand so hard I thought she'd break my fingers. She knew. 20 years old, and she could read a room better than any sommelier reading a vintage. Catherine gave the eulogy, talked about tradition, excellence, the Rousseau legacy continuing into the future. Never mentioned that I'd saved the restaurant. Never mentioned the 90-hour weeks I'd worked. The farmer in Sonoma I'd driven to meet at 4 a.m. because his heirloom tomatoes were only perfect for 3 days each August. The fishmonger at Pier 45 who held the best catch for me because I'd earned his respect over a decade of 5 a.m. visits. Just tradition, excellence, legacy. After the service, people formed a receiving line. Catherine stood at the center, accepting condolences like she was accepting a James Beard Award, which I suppose she thought she was. Dylan stood next to her, playing the devoted son, shaking hands with the same critics who'd written that my bouillabaisse was the best they'd had outside of Marseille. Sophie stayed with me. "Dad," Sophie said quietly, "why aren't you up there?" "Because I wasn't invited," I said. She looked at me with those sharp eyes that missed nothing, just like her grandfather's. "What's happening?" "Nothing yet," I told her, "but it will." The unraveling started before Jean-Pierre was buried. Wednesday morning, I arrived at Maison Rousseau at 5:30 a.m., like I had for 19 years. My key worked in the back door, but when I walked into the kitchen, there was a stranger at my station. Prep station, my mise-en-place setup, the 200-year-old carbon steel knife Jean-Pierre had given me when I made executive chef. The stranger was maybe 32, sleeve tattoos, man bun, the look of someone who'd done a stage at Noma and never let anyone forget it. He was breaking down a side of salmon badly. "Who the hell are you?" I asked. "Damien Corso," he said, not looking up. "New executive chef. Started Monday." I turned to find Catherine standing in the doorway to the dining room, wearing all black like she was still in mourning, except the outfit probably cost $3,000. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said. "In the office." The office was Jean-Pierre's, wood-paneled, filled with photos of him with culinary legends, Bocuse, Keller, Waters. My Michelin star certificate hung on the wall, the one we'd earned in 2018 after I redesigned the entire menu. Catherine sat behind the desk, my desk for the last 8 years. Dylan stood behind her like a bodyguard. I remained standing. "Maison Rousseau needs to evolve," Catherine began. "The old guard French cuisine, it's not sustainable. We need innovation, modern techniques, a younger perspective." "We have a Michelin star," I said quietly, "because of the old guard French cuisine." "Had a star," Catherine corrected. "The inspection is in 6 months. We need to show growth, evolution. Damien has worked at 11 Madison Park, Alinea, the French Laundry. He's the future." "And what am I?" I asked. "You're the past," Dylan said. It was the first time he'd spoken. His voice was steady, rehearsed. "Mom and I have been talking. Maison Rousseau needs a new direction, and that means new leadership." "You're firing me," I said. "We're restructuring," Catherine said. "Your contributions have been valued, but it's time for the restaurant to enter a new phase. You'll receive 6 months severance, and we'll handle the transition quietly. Professional courtesy." I looked at my son, the kid I'd taught to brunoise vegetables when he was 12, who'd worked every station in this kitchen, who'd told me just last month that he wanted to earn his own star someday. "You agree with this?" I asked him. "It's business, Dad," Dylan said. "Not personal." I smiled. Not a big smile, just enough. "Of course," I said. "I understand completely." Catherine's expression flickered. She'd been expecting a fight, maybe threats, definitely not agreement. "I'll need you out by end of day," she continued. "Damien needs to establish his authority with the kitchen staff." "Absolutely," I said. "I'll have my knives packed by noon." I walked out before either of them could say anything else. Didn't slam the door, didn't look back, just walked through the kitchen where I'd created 200 dishes, past the line cooks who wouldn't meet my eyes, out the back door into the alley where the morning deliveries were arriving. My phone buzzed. Text from Sophie. "Dad, Dylan just called me. Said you're out. Mom hired some celebrity chef." "Are you okay?" I typed back, "Fine. Monday will be educational." She responded immediately, "What happens Monday?" "Reality," I wrote, "but first I need to make some calls." I spent Wednesday making those calls. First to Thomas Way, Jean-Pierre's attorney, the man who'd structured everything when I'd saved the restaurant. Then to André Bouchard at Michelin. Then to every supplier I'd built relationships with over 19 years. By Thursday morning, the wheels were already coming off Catherine's plan. I wasn't there to see it, but my prep cook, Luis, called me at 6:47 a.m. "Chef," he said, "you need to know. The fish delivery didn't come. Damien's losing his mind." "Tell him to call Paolo at Pier 45, I said. "He did," Luis said. "Paolo told him to go to hell, said he only deals with you, said you have an exclusive agreement." "What agreement?" "The handshake I gave him in 2010, I said, when I helped his daughter get into culinary school." At 8:15, my phone rang. The produce supplier. "Chef Chen, we received a call from Maison Rousseau trying to place an order. I told them our contract is with you personally." They seemed confused. "They are," I said. "Are you still placing orders?" I asked. "Not with them," I said, "but keep Tuesday open. I might have news." By noon Thursday, Catherine called. 14 times. I didn't answer. Friday morning, I drove to Maison Rousseau. Didn't go inside, just parked across the street at the cafe where I used to get Jean-Pierre's morning espresso. Through the restaurant windows, I could see chaos. Damien was arguing with someone in the kitchen. Catherine was on her phone pacing. At 9:30, a man in a suit walked in. I recognized him, health inspector. Luis texted me at 9:47. Health inspector here. Says our certification is under review. Something about the license holder? I texted back. The license is in my name. Has been since 2011 when I reorganized the business structure. Can they operate without it? Not legally, I wrote. At 11:03, Thomas Way called. Marcus, Catherine's attorney, just contacted me. They're threatening legal action if you don't release the supplier contracts and transfer the operating licenses. What did you tell them? I asked. I told them to read the documents Jean-Pierre signed in 2010, Thomas said. Every single operational element of Maison Rousseau is structured through you. The business license, the health permits, the liquor license, even the lease agreement has a clause requiring your presence as executive chef or the rent triples. She doesn't know, I said. Jean-Pierre made sure she wouldn't, Thomas confirmed. He told me in 2015 that if Catherine ever tried to push you out, she'd discover she didn't actually own what she thought she owned. He saw this coming. He saw her, I said quietly. At 2:17 p.m., my phone rang. Catherine, I answered. What have you done, she said. Her voice was shaking. I haven't done anything, I said. I'm just following the business structure your father established. The suppliers won't deliver, she said. The fish guy hung up on Damien. The produce company says they only contract with you. Our liquor license is suspended. The health department says our operating permit is under review. Yes, I said. That sounds right. This is extortion, she hissed. This is consequences, I corrected. Your father didn't build Maison Rousseau on a name. He built it on relationships, on craftsmanship, on trust. Those things don't transfer with a termination notice. You can't do this, Catherine said. I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm simply not doing things. There's a difference. Monday, she said. Monday we're meeting with the attorney. The whole board. We'll sort this out. Perfect, I said. I'll see you then. I hung up before she could respond. Sophie called at 3 o'clock. Dad, Mom's having a breakdown. She's been screaming at Dylan for an hour. Says the restaurant is going to close. Says you sabotaged everything. Did you? Not exactly, I said. I just let her discover what your grandfather already knew. What's that? That Maison Rousseau was never about the name on the door, I said. It was about the name in the kitchen. Sunday afternoon, I met Thomas Way at his office in Russian Hill, converted Victorian, original wood floors, walls lined with legal volumes that probably hadn't been opened since before I was born. Thomas had been Jean-Pierre's attorney for 35 years, handled his divorce, his business restructuring, the LLC formation when we incorporated in 2010. When Jean-Pierre called someone family, it wasn't casual. Thomas was family. He was waiting in his office with a leather portfolio that looked older than some of the wines in our cellar. Marcus, Thomas said, shaking my hand. Jean-Pierre told me this day would come. He prepared for it. When? I asked. 2015, Thomas said. Right after you won the Michelin star. He came to me and said, Catherine's already taking credit for your work. She's going to try to erase you eventually. We need to make that impossible. He opened the portfolio. Inside were documents, lots of them. Operating agreements, license transfers, supplier contracts, all dated, all notarized, all signed by Jean-Pierre with my name as the designated operator. The business license, Thomas said, tapping the first document, issued to Marcus Chen, executive chef and operational director of Maison Rousseau LLC. Catherine is listed as managing partner, but she can't operate without your certification. The health permit, liquor license, even the fire safety inspection, all in your name. Jean-Pierre restructured everything after you saved the restaurant, made you essential, not just important. The lease agreement, Thomas continued, flipping pages. The landlord, Mrs. Chen, no relation, agreed to a special rate of $8,000 monthly as long as Marcus Chen is executive chef. If you're terminated, the rent increases to $24,000 monthly. That's triple. Jean-Pierre negotiated that personally. She can't afford that, I said. No, Thomas confirmed. She can't. Then there are the intellectual property agreements. Your recipes, your menu designs, your plating techniques. Jean-Pierre had you sign copyright documentation in 2016. Remember that paperwork you thought was just insurance updates? That was Jean-Pierre protecting your creations. Catherine can't use your dishes without licensing them from you. Everything on our menu is mine, I said. 87% of the current menu, Thomas confirmed. The remaining 13% are Jean-Pierre's original recipes, which, according to his will, are held in trust for you to execute. She can't make them without you. The supplier contracts are the final piece, Thomas said. You have exclusive agreements with 14 primary suppliers. Fish, produce, meat, dairy, even the wine distributors. Those contracts specify Marcus Chen as the buyer. They're not transferable without your written consent. Paolo at Pier 45 told the new chef to go to hell, I said, because Paolo's contract gives him the right to refuse service to anyone except you, Thomas confirmed. Same with Andre at Valley Produce, same with the butcher in Napa. Jean-Pierre helped you build those relationships legally binding. Why did he do all this, I asked. Thomas pulled out a letter, handwritten on Jean-Pierre's personal stationery. The handwriting was shaky, dated 6 months before he died. Marcus, I'm not a sentimental man, but I know talent when I see it. More importantly, I know my daughter. Catherine has my charm, but not my discipline. She has my taste, but not my palate. She can host a room, but she cannot build a kitchen. If you're reading this, she's made the mistake I feared. She's confused the name above the door with the hands in the kitchen. The restaurant is yours. It always has been. You earned it in 2009 when you saved it. You earned it every morning you arrived before dawn. You earned it with every dish that made people weep with joy. Don't let her destroy what we built. And Marcus, teach my grandson the difference between a title and talent. He'll need to learn it. Jean-Pierre. I folded the letter carefully. Dylan voted for my termination. He's 23, Thomas said gently. He'll learn or he won't. Either way, you have a decision to make tomorrow. What's the play, I asked. Tomorrow morning we present the documentation, Thomas said. Show Catherine that she doesn't own what she thinks she owns. Then you have 3 options. 1, force her to reinstate you as executive chef with full operational control. 2, buy her out using the leverage you have. 3, let Maison Rousseau close and open your own place with all your suppliers, your recipes, your reputation intact. Jean-Pierre left you a restaurant, Marcus. What you do with it is up to you. At exactly 9 a.m., Monday morning, I walked into Maison Rousseau through the front door. The dining room was empty except for Catherine, Dylan, and 3 people I didn't recognize. 2 lawyers and a restaurant consultant, from the look of them. Catherine sat at the best table, the corner one by the window where we usually seated food critics. She looked tired. Good. Thomas walked in behind me, carrying his leather portfolio like a weapon. Marcus, Catherine said, her voice cold. I'm glad you could join us. This is Sandra Klein from Morrison & Associates and David Park, restaurant acquisition specialist. We're here to discuss your buyout. My buyout, I said. Your severance package, Sandra corrected. 6 months' salary plus a non-compete agreement. You'll sign documentation agreeing not to work in San Francisco, fine dining for 3 years. In exchange, you'll receive $150,000 and a positive reference. I sat down slowly, looked at Thomas. He set the portfolio on the table. That's generous, I said. It is, Dylan said quickly. Dad, just take it. This doesn't have to be ugly. Before we discuss my severance, I said, let's discuss your operating license. The room went quiet. What operating license? David asked. The one that allows Maison Rousseau to serve food, I said. The business license, the health permit, the liquor license. All issued to Marcus Chen. All non-transferable without my consent. That's not accurate, Sandra said, pulling out her own documents. Maison Rousseau LLC is owned by Catherine Rousseau. She inherited full ownership from Jean-Pierre. She owns the entity, I agreed, but she doesn't operate it. Thomas opened the portfolio, slid documents across the table. Business license issued 2011, he said. Health permit renewed 2023. Liquor license transferred 2012. All list Marcus Chen as the operational certificate holder. California law requires these to be held by someone with culinary certification and management experience. Catherine doesn't qualify. I can hire someone who does, Catherine said, but her voice wavered. You can, Thomas agreed, but that takes 90 days minimum for transfer, during which time you cannot legally operate. Your current temporary permit expires in 48 hours. And even if you do transfer them, you still have other problems. What problems? David asked, and I could see him starting to understand this wasn't the meeting they'd planned. The lease, I said. Show them the lease. Thomas slid another document across. Monthly rent currently $8,000, he said, contingent on Marcus Chen serving as executive chef. Termination of his position triggers Clause 7B, which raises rent to $24,000 monthly. That's unconscionable, Sandra said. That's what Jean-Pierre negotiated, Thomas countered. Mrs. Chen, the landlord, agreed because she trusted Marcus personally. She's within her rights to charge market rate without him. Catherine's face had gone pale. Then there are the supplier contracts, Thomas continued. And this was my favorite part. 14 exclusive agreements between Marcus Chen personally and primary suppliers. Fish, produce, meat, dairy, wine distribution. All require his signature for purchase. All include non-service clauses for any other operator at this address. That's restraint of trade, Sandra said, but she didn't sound convinced. That's relationship building, I said. Paolo at Pier 45, and I have a handshake agreement from 2010. He holds the best catch for me because I helped his daughter get into culinary school. Andre at Valley Produce gives me exclusive access to heirloom varieties because I invested in his organic expansion in 2014. These aren't legal contracts, they're friendships. You can't buy friendships, David said quietly, and I could see him doing math in his head. How much would it cost to replace all those supplier relationships? Without those suppliers, Damien can't execute the menu, Thomas said. Without the menu, you have no Michelin star. Without the star, you have no premium pricing. Without premium pricing, you can't afford the tripled rent. The math doesn't work. This is extortion, Catherine said, but there was no fire in it anymore. This is the business structure your father created, I said. He saw you clearly, Catherine. Saw exactly what you do when he was gone, so he made sure I couldn't be erased. What do you want? Dylan asked. His voice cracked slightly. Do you want more money? I don't want money, I said. I want you to understand something. Maison Rousseau isn't a name. It's not an Instagram account or a society reservation or a trophy to display. It's 19 years of 90-hour weeks. It's relationships built at 4 a.m. in fish markets and farm fields. It's 10,000 hours of knife work and sauce reduction and perfect seasoning. You can't inherit that. You can't buy that. You can only earn it. You're trying to steal the restaurant, Catherine said. I'm not stealing anything, I said. I'm just helping you understand who actually owns it. What's your offer? David asked, cutting through the emotion. Thomas slid one final document across the table. Proposal, he said. Marcus Chen assumes full operational control as executive chef and managing partner. Catherine retains 30% ownership for capital investment purposes, but has no operational authority. Dylan remains as sous chef, reports to Marcus. All supplier relationships, licenses, and contracts remain with Marcus. Catherine receives $15,000 monthly distribution from profits, guaranteed for 5 years. After that, distributions are performance-based. You're taking my restaurant, Catherine whispered. I'm taking the restaurant I built, I corrected. Your father gave me the tools. You gave me the motivation. That's $900,000 over 5 years, David said. That's more than the current valuation if you can't operate. She could fight this, Sandra said, but she sounded doubtful. She could, Thomas agreed. And in 90 days, when all the legal motions are filed, and the restaurant has been dark for 3 months and the Michelin stars revoked, and the suppliers have moved on, she'll win ownership of an empty dining room with $24,000 monthly rent. Catherine stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the original hardwood Jean-Pierre had restored in 1995. "This isn't over," she said. "Actually," I said, standing to face her, "it is. You made your move. You celebrated in my kitchen with my knives. You hired my replacement before your father was cold. You thought the name above the door was the same as the hands in the kitchen. You were wrong." She walked out, didn't slam the door, just walked through the dining room where I'd served 10,000 meals, past the bar where Jean-Pierre used to taste every wine before we put it on the list, out onto Chestnut Street where the morning fog was just burning off. Dylan sat frozen in his chair, staring at the documents spread across the table. "Dad," he said quietly. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He had Catherine's features, but Jean-Pierre's eyes. Maybe there was something worth saving there. "You voted to fire me," I said. "I know," Dylan whispered. "Mom said it was necessary. Said you were holding the restaurant back. Said Damien was the future. And what do you think now?" I asked. "I think," Dylan said slowly, "I think I don't know anything about running a restaurant. I thought I did. I thought working here for 3 years meant I understood, but I don't. You know how to make a sauce," I said. "You know how to work a line. That's a start." "Can I?" Dylan paused. "Can I stay?" "That depends," I said. "On what?" "On whether you want to learn or whether you want to be in charge. There's a difference. Your grandfather knew it. I know it. You need to figure out if you know it." "I want to learn," Dylan said. "Then Tuesday morning, 5:30 a.m., I said. "We're reopening. You're on guard, Monsieur. Show me you can brunoise 10 pounds of vegetables without cutting yourself. Then we'll talk about the rest." Over the next 4 months, Maison Rousseau transformed. Not in cuisine. We kept the core of what made us great, but in spirit. I brought back the soul Jean-Pierre had built, the one that got lost somewhere between Instagram photos and society pages. Catherine signed the agreement. Her attorney advised her she had no choice. She kept her 30% in her $15,000 monthly distribution. She came to the restaurant once, sat in the back, watched service for an hour without ordering, then left. She started consulting for tech companies that wanted to open vanity restaurants. I heard she was doing well. Dylan showed up Tuesday at 5:30, showed up every day after. Didn't complain, didn't ask for special treatment, started at the bottom and worked his way through every station like he was a new hire. By month 3, he was running guard manger. By month 6, he was working fish. He was learning the difference between a title and talent. Sophie finished her semester at Cornell, then called me. "Dad, I want to come home. I want to work front of house." "You're going to finish your degree first," I said. "Then we'll talk." "Deal," she said. "But I'm staging there this summer. No arguments." In June, André Bouchard from Michelin came for dinner. Unannounced, anonymous, the way it should be. He ordered the bouillabaisse, the duck confit, the tarte tatin. Didn't speak to anyone, just ate and watched. 2 weeks later, the email came. Maison Rousseau had retained its star. The review mentioned consistency, integrity, and the kind of cooking that comes from decades of dedication, not trends. 1 month after that, Thomas Way called. "Marcus," he said, "Jean-Pierre's estate has been fully settled. There's something you should know. The building that houses Maison Rousseau, Jean-Pierre bought it in 2014. He never told Catherine. It's been held in a trust." "What trust?" I asked. "The Marcus Chen Culinary Trust," Thomas said. "Jean-Pierre transferred ownership to you in 2016. You own the building, Marcus. You've been paying rent to yourself." "Why?" I asked. "Because Jean-Pierre knew Catherine would try to take everything," Thomas said. "He made sure she couldn't take what mattered. The restaurant, the building, the legacy. It's all yours. Has been for 8 years. You just didn't know it." That evening, I stayed late at Maison Rousseau. The dinner service had ended. The kitchen was clean. The line cooks had gone home. Just me in the quiet dining room, sitting at the table where Jean-Pierre used to sit every Sunday. The corner spot where he'd watch service and sip Armagnac and tell stories about cooking in Paris in the 70s. I poured 2 fingers of the Armagnac he loved, the one we kept in his office, raised the glass to his photo on the wall, The one where he's standing in the kitchen in 1987, young and hungry and ready to build something that mattered. You saw her, I said to the photo, saw exactly what she'd become. You saw me too. Thank you for that. My phone buzzed. Text from Dylan. Dad, prep's done for tomorrow. Fish is beautiful. Paolo said to tell you he's proud of us. Whatever that means, I typed back. It means we're doing it right. Sophie sent a photo an hour later. Her final exam grade, 98%. The note said, coming home in 3 weeks. Ready to learn front of house from the best. Not Catherine, you. I sat in Jean-Pierre's spot and felt something I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Peace. Not because I'd won, winning wasn't the point, because I'd protected what mattered. The craft, the relationships, the work, the actual work. Maison Rousseau wasn't about the name above the door. It never had been. It was about the hands in the kitchen, the suppliers who trusted you, the customers who came back because the food was honest. Jean-Pierre had known that. Had built protections I didn't know existed. Had seen his daughter clearly and loved her anyway. But loved the restaurant more. Loved what it represented. Craftsmanship over entitlement, earning over inheriting, substance over style. 10 months after I walked back through the doors as owner, Maison Rousseau had its best year in history. Not because we changed anything fundamental, but because we returned to what made us great in the first place. Real cooking, real relationships, real work. Catherine sent me an email in December. Just one line. You won. I didn't respond. Winning wasn't the point. Building something that lasts, something that matters, something that feeds people's bodies and souls, that was the point. Jean-Pierre had known it, had spent 40 years proving it, had trusted me to carry it forward. I sat in his spot every Sunday after that, drank his Armagnac, watched Dylan work the line with growing confidence, waited for Sophie to come home and learn the front of house the right way. And I thought about the difference between a name and legacy. One you inherit, the other you earn. Jean-Pierre earned his. Now it was my turn to do the same.